Hello again to this microphone review lecture. I am in the middle of talking about condenser microphones. In this case, small versus large. They sonically are very different microphones, even though they both are condensers. And it's useful for the audio engineer to kind of know the differences in some of these strengths and weaknesses and why we would choose one over the other. Small diaphragm condensers, up here in the upper left, this SM81 here, they tend to excel in high frequency response over their larger brethren. They tend to have an overall smoother high frequency response. This can have to do with capsule tuning, and I think it all has a lot to do with the internal resonances that come in the larger grills and reflections that happen with a large diaphragm condenser. You can imagine reflections within this 44 here on the upper right. Due to capsule size and grill size, small diaphragm microphones tend to be more directional and have a more consistent off-axis frequency response. So again, I'm pointing here towards small diaphragms being a more perfect microphone in a lot of ways. Less mass in the diaphragm means superior transient response. They tend to excel at tiny and spiky sources like cymbals, that sort of stuff. They tend to experience, specifically handheld versions, less handling noise issues. So small diaphragm condensers are frequently chosen when transient frequency response accuracy are paramount. Percussion, acoustic instruments, orchestras, overheads, that sort of thing. Now, the large diaphragm, I did that backwards, my apology. The large diaphragm condenser microphones are kind of opposite in all these, and I'm not saying that small diaphragms are better, they're just different. The large diaphragms tend to actually have more output level. They have a larger mass in their diaphragm, so they can have a greater voltage swing with an incoming transient, which they can be louder. So if you're really worried about noise, large diaphragms are superior. They tend to have a deeper low frequency response, which is sort of intuitive. They have a larger diameter to their diaphragm. This can be preferable for vocalists because the lower resonant frequency of the microphones can flatter a vocalist, specifically a male vocalist. And a really good thing is it pushes the proximity effect lower in frequency, and it's a less of an issue with vocal miking. Taking an SM50, SM81 here, this microphone on the upper left, and using that on vocals will make a lot of poo 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 kind of sound. Where the large diaphragm it doesn't do that as much. So typically in the studio we prefer large diaphragms over vocals. And I would also argue that large diaphragm microphones look cool. We've seen a lot of pictures over the years of big tube microphones in the studio, so if you're shooting an MTV video, you're definitely going to pick a large diaphragm condenser. So, large diaphragms are typically superior for vocalists, drum set overheads when you actually want to pick up the tom-toms, the low end. Some people high pass that out, some people don't. So if you're not a high passer, then a large diaphragm may be more of a choice for you. Distance and section miking, because you're going to get extra level, and when you want it to look a particular way. Moving on, ribbon mics. Now, ribbon microphones very similar to a dynamic microphone in that it uses electromagnetic induction to produce its voltage, but pretty different sounding than the other two microphones. They are darker. They tend to have kind of a rolled off, smoother, some people call it a warmer high frequency response. Certainly you look at Frank or Bing Crosby and these old guys from way back when in their crooner days, you'll see that the large ribbon microphones were the mic of the choice and the mic of the era, and that sound is now coveted by some people. They tend to be bidirectional. There are directional ribbon microphones, but most of them are bidirectional, so they pick up near equal from both sides, which can be an issue in live sound. They tend to be fragile, specifically these older ones like this 44 here. They can be this particular mic weighs like 20 pounds. It's really heavy and it's fragile. So you wouldn't want to put it inside a kick drum. They've been known to be blown up by loud amplifiers, loud drums, that sort of stuff. And they have to be stored in a particular way, at least the old ones do. So that's traditionally an issue with ribbon microphones. And they tend to be quieter. They have a much lower output voltage, so they need more preamplification, which can be an issue on quiet sources. So generally, ribbon microphones are problematic in the live world. Luckily, there's some new technology. Royer's come out with some really nice microphones, modern ribbons, that give you the advantages of ribbons without some of the downsides. And they even have live-specific ones that have a little thicker capsule, a little thicker ribbon diaphragm that are less likely to be destroyed. And so in modern PAs, that sound really great with modern consoles, which are very hi-fi, you have the option of switching to a lower fi, smoother, rounder ribbon microphone on, say, a guitar amp or something to get that sound, because we now have ribbon microphones made specifically for live sound. I'm going to end here and finish with the final video in a moment.